All right, good evening. It is 7 o'clock on Monday, the 21st of September. This is a regular meeting of the Richfield Board of Education. In attendance this evening are Deb Etchen, Superintendent Steve Yanowski, Todd Nolenberger, Christine Malik. I'm Peter Tensing. John Ashmead is not able to join us this evening, and Tim Paulus has let us know that he'll be a little bit late. We do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I would first off look for a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Nolenberger, second by Malik. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The agenda is approved as it stands. So we can go ahead and move on to our first item, which is a presentation from a very large contingent from the Richfield STEM School. Joey, I see you brought, I think, is that in your entire third and fourth grade classroom? So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us, members of the board and public as well. My name is Joey Page. I'm the principal at the Richfield STEM School, and we're here tonight to highlight some professional development that took place at our building over this past summer with a new partnership that we have with the University of Minnesota and the Mayo Clinic called Inside Out, which is integrating science, education, outreach. In this summer, we had 10 teachers in our building attend an internship at the University of Minnesota to look at integrating different components, higher level science into our STEM school. And we have a presentation that we're going to go through tonight to share with you the experience of the internship, the outcome of that internship, and also just some future goals that we have with this. So I don't want to take too much time because I think you really want to hear what these people have to say. So I'll introduce Chris Engelbrecht, who is an ESL teacher in our building, and he's got a lot of helpers here tonight.
Helpful to use this? Okay.
Yes, and that actually more plays to the camera for us for the YouTube channel.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I also noticed the typing. I hope this is all being documented. Thank you to the school board. My name is Chris Engelbrecht. I'm an ESL teacher at Richfield STEM School. I have a number of colleagues here to support me and to help out. Chris Aubrey, fourth grade teacher. Diane Erdman, fourth grade teacher as well. Nancy Anderson, fifth grade. Barb Teese, third grade, and Carrie Allen, first grade. There were a number of other participants. Before I get started, actually, you can see here the presentation that we have is an electronic format of a poster that we would like our students to present in the future, hopefully at our STEM Expo. So if you join us this spring, hopefully a number of our students will be able to produce something like this. If you want to click forward a slide. The other participants who are not here were, let's see here, Omar McMillan, Emily Burt. And just to tell you kind of what happened, August, the 10 of us were at the University of Minnesota. And again, this is a partnership between the University of Minnesota and the Mayo Clinic and Richfield STEM School. One of the things that we were doing is being involved in a project-based curriculum. So it was authentic science inquiry. We were the scientists, and they made us feel like the scientists. So it wasn't just teachers being talked at about a presentation, learning from a smart board like this. We were involved heavily in the science. So it was something really interesting and something that we can implement into our classrooms. So this kind of follows like the scientific method. Here's our question. Does Inside Out increase student achievement? And are students more engaged when they're doing authentic inquiry? So our hypothesis was that Inside Out increases student achievement and engagement. So what Inside Out does is the 10 of us were involved in this internship. Our goal over the next couple of years is to get a number of cohorts from our building through this program and to do internships just like we did. So we can kind of build a critical mass in our building and really implement this with fidelity. What that means is that we were giving foundations of science inquiry There was also pedagogy, and there was also an opportunity to do some curriculum writing. We were working alongside real scientists, postdoctoral scientists, graduate level scientists. They were helping us out develop this curriculum. We're also going to have another couple of professional development days where we're going to get to work together with these scientists and create some really meaningful units that are based around real scientific inquiry. Another thing that they would do is they provide us with human support. We talked about these scientists helping us out write the curriculum. They also have material support, so things like microscopes and just other equipment that they have at the University of Minnesota that we don't have access to. They will lend us and beef up our program. And so the one thing that you're going to see, and that's really cool about this program, is that zebrafish are a model organism for studying. And if you look here, one thing, this is what you're looking at as a zebrafish embryo in its first 24 hours of life. And you can see it, the cells start out from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, 32, and so on. And students can see this, and there's so many opportunities for bringing in math, and having the students observe this and the exponential growth is just absolutely amazing. If you want to show the other one, zebrafish have a lot in common with us. We learned that at the DNA level, there's a number of things that these fish can tell us about our own health and enlighten us about things that happen in our body. For example, how does caffeine affect our system, or what does nitrogen in our aquatic systems, how does that affect cell growth in these embryos? You're seeing here some of the high-powered microscopes that we were able to use. And there are even some of these zebrafish embryos that they're called transgenic zebrafish. And they're DNA from a jellyfish that allows the red blood cells to fluoresce. So you can actually see the cells pump through the heart. And so if students have a scientific question, they can use these microscopes and how it's affecting the anatomy, or down to the specific red blood cell, what's happening to the fish. And there you can see it just churning through. So I think you could see how students would be engaged. We were engaged as learners, and it made us really want to bring this back to our school. And I'll hand it off to a few colleagues to show some of the work they did. Again, we were the students, and so they put us through the scientific process that our students would go through.
So one of the things that we were really concerned about was just the effects of the chemicals that our students were exposed to when they played in the grassy areas around the playground. And we knew that herbicides and fertilizers were used, and so we decided to study the effects of that on zebrafish.
The mode that we used for the zebrafish, we did not use the phosphorescent fish, but what we did was look at the embryo development and the mortality. So we started out with the recommended dose of Roundup and Miracle Grow separately, and put zebrafish in, and then we had a 50%, we had a 10%, and a 1% solution. Everything died, just completely died. We ended up going down to 1/100th of a percent and 1,000th of a percent before we got any of the embryos that survived at all, which was pretty amazing when you think about that the starting place was what you put on your plants. So, and then once we found a point where we had some mortality, some survival rates, then we combined the two to find out what would happen if you had both Miracle Grow and Roundup together, if there would be anything more. And we really expected it to be a much higher mortality when you combined them. And at one point, it kind of was, but then there was a point where instead of getting higher mortality, we had a higher survival rate when we had 1/100th of a percent solution, which was very interesting. And we wondered, we had a lot of questions about that, and we wondered if maybe this is akin to kids that eat healthy and have vitamins, are stronger and have more resistance. But there's a lot of things for us still to look at. We brought up some questions that might be interesting to do in a future study.
I guess I don't have too much more to add, except that a good scientific experiment just leads to more questions, more inquiry, excitement in the students for looking for more things, and it certainly did that for us, and we think it will do that for our students as well.
So this poster and the Google Slides presentation, this presentation can be printed out into that format. So you can have a digital format and you could have the printed out poster format as well. So the results. I don't know if I mentioned this prior, but this Inside Out was first developed in Rochester schools at Lincoln Elementary. And what those teachers reported were they gained access to local scientific technology and expertise. They reported improved integration of other disciplines in their scientific curriculum. The students more than doubled the selection of honors science track in high school to nearly 90%. I think that's a really important statistic because, again, we're talking about our building and getting a critical mass of teachers involved. The goal, I think, would be to further that into the middle school and high school eventually. And having these students, 90% of whom wanted to take honors science in middle school is an amazing statistic. And then 98% of the students who took the MCAs in 5th and 8th grade year showed medium or high growth in science proficiency. So, in conclusion, well, there's the statistics that back up the results that I just shared with you, but we can go to the conclusions. Our conclusions that real science is fun. We had a great time at this program, and thank you to Dr. Page and the support from this whole team. We really appreciate it. It worked at Lincoln Elementary, and it's going to work at our STEM too. And the internship was phenomenal, and we've already recommended this to our colleagues so that next year there will be a cohort at the University of Minnesota. But we know that results are only going to be achieved after real and systemic implementation. And as fun as it was, now we're on the ground and we have to make these lessons work for our students, and we're committed to it. And we thank you for the opportunity that you provided for us. Our kids need this, and we're very happy to be moving forward. And if you have any questions, I'll have Carrie Allen back me up.
So board members, questions for the STEM school teachers?
What do you think is needed in order to make sure that this gets to critical mass, as you said? And then, I guess in my mind, what are your thoughts, if you've had them yet, about how we make sure that kids continue to be challenged after they leave STEM? STEM, they're in 5th grade. They've still got 7 years of school left in Richfield. How do we kind of work with the other buildings to help make sure that kids are challenged appropriately going forward? If that's not something you thought about, that's fair.
I might pass this on to Dr. Page, but I think one of the first things is we have to encourage our colleagues, and that happens in presentations like this, but it also happens just talking to our teachers at our PLC meetings, at our committee meetings, and discussing how excited we are about the program. We need, within 3 years, to have, I think, 30 of our teachers to go through this program. That allows us to go back to those PLC meetings, to the planning meetings, and have meaningful discussions and create real curriculum that we all have the ability to implement. So it's not going to be fully implemented this year. We understand that, but I think we're getting the ball rolling, and within the next couple of years, we hope to be a school that is doing this very well. And I think right now we work with Monarchs, for example, and our students are doing STEM-related activities, but this is a way to bolster that and to rejuvenate it. As far as the middle school or continued, would you like to talk to that, Dr. Page, at all?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And thank you for the question. I think that's a goal and a conversation that has to happen district-wide with our teaching and learning team, too. I think there's definitely an interest from the Mayo and the University of Minnesota to strongly partner with Richfield. We've had some preliminary discussions as we were setting up this internship. What does that look like down the road for the K-12 student? So I think it would be nice to do some planning around that and get invitations out to our middle school and high school math and science teachers so we can have opportunities for kids to do high-level science in their career in Richfield.
So, and we should note that, so this program came out of conversations with Dr. Page where he was looking to take the next steps in terms of STEM and how do we ensure that we're truly living that vision at our STEM. And so creating that partnership, an innovative partnership with the University of Minnesota and the Mayo Clinic is something that Dr. Page and his team should be very proud of. These 10 folk, we're studying for a couple of weeks this summer at the University of Minnesota and giving a lot of their time and dedication to the STEM vision. They also committed to help bring this to their team members and to expand that at their level. And then if we think about our strategic plan and talking about the next levels and how do we move that up, I actually had a conversation with Principal Zambrino, who's working with a couple of his staff already. Aubrey Junker and Mart Oberle are already working with the Science Museum and the Nexus program to talk about how do we take STEM and integrate that up at the middle school level, like we've already begun with the RDLS Spanish dual immersion. And then we're also working with Principal Daniels at the high school as she talks about how do we bring dual immersion up there. And as we think about those logical transitions and continuations of programming, we can also assume that we're going to be moving up with some programming in regard to STEM at the high school in the long run. But this today should be about the innovative partnership that these 10 folk did, culminating in what was honestly like an adult science fair. They were down presenting, and they had to be grilled by questions from the superintendent and our HR director and a bunch of the members of our team, and they were very impressive with their work, not only for their own science learning, but how they're going to bring that learning to their students. So it was very impressive.
So you talked about the equipment sharing and microscopes and things like that. So what are the logistics of that? Like, do they bring it to the STEM school? And
Yeah, there's actually a website. So we have a website that we can go on and request materials. We don't even, it's not just an email format. We can request it. They'll follow up with us. We put a date on there, and then they will bring out the materials to us. So that could be zebrafish embryos. It could be these high-powered microscopes. Actually, the high-powered microscopes connect to devices like cell phones or tablets so that these kids are not just looking through the microscopes, but they're looking at it with their team members real time, taking videos, taking photographs, labeling the photographs. So that's integrating technology as well, which was eye-opening for me going to college a little while ago. Things have changed quite a bit, and it's great that we can bring that to our elementary schools and to our school district.
It's not just the equipment that comes for the people who've actually participated in Inside Out. My understanding is that there will be some of the people from the program at the university who will come and work with us and co-teach with us and help, the kids understand the equipment. So if for other teachers can participate in whatever program we've done, they won't get the direct co-teaching help from the personnel. But part of the advantage of this is that we also get these people who are actively in an educational or career track for science and engineering in our room working with us. And that inspirational piece for the kids. And I might add that it's somewhat diverse, at least racially, culturally. It's not, everybody's not all, blonde from the farm, which is also a good thing for our kids.
It's also when we make innovative partnerships with places like the U of M and Mayo Clinic, it's hard to tell where the bounds are. So some of us visited Moreland Arts and Science in West St. Paul last year, and their Principal Eric Bradley traveled to Ghana for an Inside Out partnership, and they're going to be now international partners with a school in Ghana who is also partnering with the University of Minnesota, providing some intercultural relations back and forth, doing science across the world with each other. And so who knows where this will take us with our innovative STEM team.
that's great.
I have a couple of questions. first, I was hoping that one or two of you could maybe share some specific learnings that you had that you're planning on implementing in your classroom this year. Yeah, you have to fight over that microphone. I know.
Well, one of the things that we'll be doing in 4th grade is extending our water quality unit. So in the fall, we study invertebrates and the effects of what we're finding in pond life and what we see about water quality. And in the spring, we hope to study the zebrafish again in different solutions of acidic water to see what the effects will be on that. So that might be perhaps one of the things we'll do.
I think she pretty much put it down. The first year, the objective is to integrate this into one project, one unit. And, you know, there's a lot going on right now, so we kind of need to do that. And part of that is the curriculum writing that we have, where we'll finish that up. We made a lot of progress towards getting this unit put together, but we have 3 curriculum days this fall where they're going to come out and they'll meet with us and help us to kind of set this curriculum up so that it's not just going on a website and ordering stuff and people come. There's a definite plan and everybody is on board and knows what that's supposed to look like. So for the 4th grade, that's our project this year. The other grades have different curriculum projects that they're working on, and hopefully we can do more in future years, but to have just one to get us going and do it well is our goal this year.
I think one of the difficult things is that this is totally student focused. So we can kind of predict, we have guided practice. For example, it's water quality in 4th grade. But ultimately in the spring, when we're getting to this curriculum unit that we're talking about, it's the students' questions that are eventually going to guide what we're doing. And that's where the team from the University of Minnesota can help us kind of narrow their focus a little bit on what is a researchable question. And that's when they can bring in zebrafish or different organisms that can really truly investigate their questions. It's hard for us because we can't take full control of that. It's guided practice, but then it's letting them be real scientists. And so that was kind of eye-opening for us. It's a different way to think about teaching.
Outstanding. Other questions for the team from STEM school?
It was an awesome presentation. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess I just had one other question, and maybe Mr. Yanowski or Dr. Page. The funding source, I just want to be clear, the funding source for this particular internship for this cohort of 10, was that funded by the district or funded by a grant, or how did that work out?
So it was a mix of professional development funds from the district and from STEM, but also supported financially significantly through the U of M and Mayo. So we paid our staff, and they paid for a significant amount of additional work.
Got it. And
there's a benefactor that is leading the charge with this, and so our obligation was to compensate teachers for their time, and part of that partnership or through that grant foundational work was the space at the University of Minnesota and all of the access to the scientists that they're picking up.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So obviously, I think Mr. Nolenberger kind of touched on, our interest here on the board is frequently about sustainability. So I guess that's always a piece that we're interested in hearing about and understanding how that, can be, how we can move forward and, how that fits in with all of the rest of our plans. So I think an important piece for us to be aware of.
And I think the U of M and Mayo have committed through the training of our teachers, and we have committed as a district to continuing on that STEM momentum. And then it becomes self-sustaining. The learning that these staff have done, they will help to grow with each other through that partnership and extending their STEM knowledge.
Yeah, I think similar to like when our building was starting and we had the significant investment in professional development for our teachers through the St. Kate's training. I look at this as a similar situation as we're investing in the teachers with the professional development so they can work with that knowledge and bring that to their students. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Other questions? All right. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you for your commitment to our students, and we'll look forward to great things to come. I have a fourth grader with Mrs. Aubrey, so I'll be excited to hear about what she learns. So thank you very much. So we can go ahead and move on to our second item, which is reports and information from school sources. We will learn from Mr. Unowski.
And obviously in the fourth week of school, we just continue on with very smooth business. Just a reiteration of the impressiveness of that STEM program and the programming. And so it wasn't an accident that we wanted to kick things off with them this year. We rotate through schools hosting our board meetings. And hosting doesn't actually mean we go to that site. They come here and share some of the exciting things that are happening within their program. And so for us at Richfield Public Schools, we were very excited and pleased by the STEM partnership with the University of Minnesota and the Mayo Clinic. A couple of other updates. We did have at the League of Women Voters at the City Council. We presented conversation in regard to our upcoming referendum. There is an election of 9 candidates to the school board for 3 positions, and then there will also be 2 questions in regard to the referendum on the ballot. One is to renew our operational levy of approximately $933 per student. And one is, the second question is for a small inflationary increase capped at $2 or 2% or $3.40 per home per year. So a citizen had us break that out to, it would, if you voted yes on both, it would maintain taxes as is and increase taxes up to 28 cents per month. And those funds go towards licensed classroom teachers, extending our education in reading and math at the lower end for students who need to catch up to grade level, and also providing opportunities for students who are ahead of their grade level, challenging them at all their levels. Provides gifted and talented teachers, provides secondary opportunities for students, providing extra electives and enrichment opportunities, and also finally provides dual credit classes where students receive credit for college courses while enrolled in high school, whereas last year our students earned over 1,000 credits, saving their families over $670,000 in college tuition. So those are the things that are on the ballot in the upcoming referendum. That would
Yes,
conclude.
so I think just as a point of reflection, if you are watching this now on TV, you might very well be aware that the League's candidate forum is going to be broadcast on the local cable access channel, as well as an Inside the Issues conversation that the League hosted with Mr. Nolenberger, Mr. Yanowski, and myself regarding a number of school district issues. So I would encourage citizens to educate themselves about the candidates and to educate themselves about the referendum for this important election coming up this fall. The second item from the reports from school sources is the lease space report.
Yes, and this is just being presented as a point of information, reporting back the annual leases that are brought in by the district. Grand total for all of our school buildings, $75,000, which is slightly down, approximately $39,000 from last year, due to Bethel Church and Richfield Gymnastics Club not renewing their lease spaces. Additionally, we lease out the stadium, and we also have cell towers that we have partnerships, bringing in revenue to the district, somewhere in the range of about $250,000 a year total.
So questions for Mr. Yanowski or our business office regarding the lease space report? The setting of rates for the lease, I believe, is another item that we take up annually, which I think we did earlier this spring. So this is just simply a report on the income generated at this point.
That is correct.
Very good. Hearing no questions, we can go ahead and move on to the next item. We will, As I quickly move to my agenda, there are no commendations to report this evening, so we can go ahead and move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move the consent agenda.
Second.
So a motion by Nolenberger, second by Ms. Etchen, that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, the motion carries. So we can move on then to new business. New business item 1 is MSBA legislative resolutions. Mr. Nowski.
Yes, all right, so we had a conversation about this at our last meeting, brought back for possible resolution or at least conversation. These are the 3 topics of which we had resolutions from previously in regard to MSBA and the School Board Association. These also, we're on the platform for MSBA in the past lobbying work. One had to do with full funding for actual special education costs. Special education is actually funded somewhere in the 52 to 55% range and is what's called cross-subsidized. So it's one of the few areas that we take money from a wide range of our students and apply them to our special education costs. And so one of the things we consistently ask for is to fully fund special education, which is a requirement to serve the needs of all of our students. Fully funding for early childhood programming. So we provide pre-K programs to many of our students, and we are hoping that that becomes a fully funded program. We believe, both within our strategic plan and also within our vision, that early childhood dollars typically pay back $17 for every dollar invested. And so having a platform that fully funds pre-K and early childhood programming benefits not only our students, but also our families and our entire community. And then finally, and this has been a conversation with the legislature, is supporting older districts with deferred maintenance costs. Our buildings, while highly effective and well maintained, are over 40 years old each. And it is a significant drain on the taxpayer and on our district to try to consistently maintain. And so we are hoping for state level support in regard to deferred maintenance costs and providing support to some districts with older buildings. So these were 3 things that we had talked about in the past that were on the agenda. So the question is if we support maintaining the MSBA agenda or should we craft other resolutions?
So thoughts or questions regarding the proposed legislative resolutions or other ideas if there are specific issues? I know we had touched on this at our last meeting. Relative to the full funding for early childhood, do we know what that means? I mean, does that reflect is that sort of what would be commonly referred to as universal pre-K for 4-year-olds? Considering that there have been sort of some competing notions brought up at the state in the past.
Right, there are definitely competing interests, even with the programming that we provide in Richfield Public Schools, and we actually have currently expanded to have early childhood programming at 3 of our 4 elementary buildings, and are looking at the feasibility of bringing it to 4 of the 4 buildings. Our program is actually currently not fully funded, and we help support some of that through compensatory education funds at the building. So fully funding programming can be seen in 2 different ways. It's not exactly the same as universal. That would be every child across the entire state of Minnesota. We would be asking for, or what we have asked for in the past is fully funding the programming that we have. And our programming is for children living in poverty, children with free and reduced lunch access. It doesn't become controversial pretty typically. Most people are actually in support of full funding for students living in poverty, and then the questions, or it becomes a little bit dicier in terms of support with regard to the governor's proposal of universal pre-K. So this is sort of the ask before a universal ask, and that is what that's what we've put forth as a resolution or a request in the past, and that has been on their agenda.
So I think that's an important distinction to make. I mean, my own personal feeling, and I'd certainly like to hear feedback from other board members, would be to support the notion of fully funding pre-K, with this piece of local control over how that is implemented. and sort of what that full funding means. Others have thoughts on that?
I think the reality is that full funding of pre-K universally is going to be controversial. So if you're going to hope for success, I think you're looking at trying to demonstrate where full funding of pre-K for at-risk students would be most ideally implemented, and then asking for funding for that. So, and personally, I think that's probably where it's most effective and most valuable as well.
Yeah. And again, I think that local control over implementation in my mind is really critical to effectiveness and efficiency with operations. We know that our ability to implement a program in Blue Earth would not be so good if we were trying to do it from Richfield, and vice versa. So I think we'd like the local districts to be able to implement. Other thoughts on any of the other issues?
To me, Mr. Chair, these continue to be items that would benefit Richfield in a lot of ways. If we were to see full funding of special ed costs, that would free up dollars in our budget that could be utilized throughout the district. If we were to see full funding for early childhood, again, freeing up dollars out of our compensatory, it would certainly benefit the district as a whole. And our buildings are, as Mr. Yanowski points out, they're well maintained. We receive comments all the time about how good they look considering their age, but they do continue to age. And so we're one of those districts that would benefit and would realize probably the ability to deal with some of our deferred maintenance if we were to get some dollars freed up from that perspective. So I'd be supportive of all three of these items from a Richfield perspective.
I agree. These three would be huge for us.
So very good. I think we can communicate that back to MSBA that that's sort of where Richfield stands. And then we will also, of course, be looking forward to conversations with our own legislators and in the legislative session as it opens this January. So the next item will be, we can move on to new business now, which is item number 1, the property liability and fleet insurance renewal.
All right, coming back at you with the superintendent. So I got to expand my bandwidth of leadership this past few days, knowing that I'll be having conversation about levies, about insurance. So I got prepared by Ms. Humnick, by Mr. Miltier, and by Mr. Holge. And so we are bringing to you the renewal of our insurance, which basically has a slight reduction in the overall premiums, which actually offsets the estimated 3% increase in property value. And that property value increase is based on our assumptions from the improvements in the technology infrastructure that have been added to our system. So if you look at a small increase of $3,800 in additional premium from property values, you also offset with the reduction of premium, leading to an overall reduction, it would appear, of around $4,000. So our insurance costs actually go down in liability insurance by $4,000 from last year to this year.
So questions regarding the property liability fleet and professional insurance renewal.
So the social workers weren't covered under the professional liability before?
It appears to be the case, yeah.
That was the case.
Yeah.
So what were the added responsibilities?
We are performing what's called third-party billing within our district. So some of our students qualify for medical assistance and are actually receiving some forms of health care through the district, and social workers supervise the paperwork in regard to that. And so they are now covered by liability insurance should there be a claim in connection with that. So they had no new services being provided, just the paperwork that goes along with it.
Ms. Clarkson is here, so I'm sure she can give specific details. The actual services that we're billing, are those primarily occupational and physical therapy or speech therapy related?
Those are some of them that we're billing for. The part that our social workers are assisting with are for personal comparison personal care assistance. So it's activities of daily living, physical needs like toileting, feeding, behavioral support that our paraprofessionals provide to our students.
Got it.
So that's a pretty significant amount of money that we have access to be reimbursed from
Got it.
medical services.
So good to be clear on that. Yes, Mr. Paulus.
Is it communicated what the policy limits are, either per occurrence or?
Well, now we're stretching my knowledge base.
Perhaps I should follow up with Mr. Holdry.
As I've modeled for my team, that's an answer I'm going to have to get the information and get back to you, Mr. Paulus.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, as I'm scanning the sheet, I'm not necessarily seeing that particular detail, so,
Doesn't jump out, no.
yeah.
My experience is typically if you get a sort of a blanket renewal like this from an agent, there'll be a declaration of coverages and all of them will show policy limits and things like that. So it'd be good to know.
I can bring you the card in 2 weeks, sir.
Sounds great.
Further questions? If not, if anyone's prepared to make a motion, we can entertain that. If Tim, if you feel that that item is important enough to table, no?
I have reasonable faith that the district has found appropriate limits in the past and will continue to have them.
I'll second.
So the motion by Nolenberger, second by Malik, that we approve the recommendation from the superintendent. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Our next item is the preliminary levy certification, and we'll welcome Mrs. Humnick.
All right, so I am also moving this, and Ms. Humnick is there to answer any questions should we get outside of my toolbox or my skill set. She did have a remedial session with a lowly superintendent earlier today to make sure that I was financially sound in understanding levy certification. And so our role today is to certify the preliminary proposed levy. Recommendation is to certify what's called the maximum levy at this time, and it's actually, you could almost say it's the waiting for December 7th levy. So this is the proposed levy, and what we're doing is providing ourselves the flexibility depending on student enrollment. So decisions we make at this time actually just allow us to have flexibility for the future, and the decision we make will be more cemented in on December 7th when we have actual state student counts which impact the levy and how we actually certify those numbers. We could certainly reduce that, and we have done that in December when we certify the final levy. And it's also important to note that we have no more voter-approved bonding debt, and so we're very proud of that ongoing work and the fiscal conservative of our district.
And my recollection is that we typically approve this at the maximum under the premise that you can always reduce it prior to December or in December, but you can't increase above what you approve on this meeting here. So I think your point about this has to be in by the end of September, but we don't have all of our numbers in place. We don't know what everything's going to look like from a budget perspective, which is why we typically authorize the maximum now and then make adjustments accordingly prior to December.
That is correct.
That is my recollection as well. Any further questions on the preliminary levy certification? If there is a board member prepared to make a motion, we can entertain that.
I move that we approve the preliminary levy certification as presented.
Second.
So motion by Malik, second by Etchen, that we certify the preliminary levy as presented. All those we first ask for discussion. No.
Good catch.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. The motion carries. I'm going to go back to my agenda and we'll see what's up next.
I believe it is miscellaneous pay rates, and for this one I
Yes.
actually get to tag out. And Although I'm feeling like I'm on a roll here, but we're going to turn it over to Joel Miltier to have a conversation briefly with us about miscellaneous pay rates.
Chair Tenzing, members of the board, Superintendent Yanowski, here tonight to propose to you the miscellaneous pay rates for the district, proposed changes for those. The miscellaneous pay rates covers a variety of positions in the school district that are either casual employment or not represented by one of our current bargaining agreements. This schedule is generally looked at annually and compared against market rates and conditions to make sure that we're consistent. The following changes are proposed for the 2015-2016 school year. Approximately a 2% increase for school nurses, family outreach workers, and security officers. An increase for homebound teachers that's going to be consistent with the negotiated teacher hourly rate. Addition of a video camera production position. The elimination of avid tutors due to a program change. Increase in the base rate of community education enrichment instructor to be consistent with the base rate in the Bloomington community education program. A decrease to the top end of our hourly range for the community education computer instructors, again to be consistent with Bloomington's rates. An increase in the rates for the Wiggles and Giggles preschool program, which is coordinated with the city of Richfield. And then all other rates on the schedule would remain the same for the 2015-16 school year.
Questions for Mr. Miltier?
Mr. Material, this is not intended as a gotcha question, but you indicated that we were doing approximately 2% increases for several items on the list. You mentioned security officers, and the list does not reflect that. I wonder if that should have been adjusted.
Yes, that should have been adjusted. The $21 there should have been adjusted for the 2%. Thank you.
So we would probably, is there a time issue? It's going to be retroactive, is it not?
Yes, it will be retroactive.
And is it, should we suggest 2% there?
Yes, we'll be suggesting 2% with the security officers.
Mr. Chair, if there are other questions, otherwise I'm willing to make a motion.
Any further questions?
I would move approval of miscellaneous pay rates with the understanding that security officers will be increased by 2%.
Is there
I'll second.
So second, motion by Nolenberger, second by Paulus, that we approve the miscellaneous pay rates with the amendment for the security officer 15-16 rate. I did have a question for you, Mr. Miltier, as we'll hold this item for discussion for just a moment. Have we experienced any difficulty filling these positions?
Not to my knowledge. In the research that we've done so far this year, most of these positions are filled relatively easily. We're going to be looking at most of the athletic positions throughout the school year with our new activities director to ensure that those are appropriately paid and consistent with other school districts in the market as well around us.
Very good. Any further discussion? We do have a motion on the table. If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, the motion carries.
Thank you.
We can move on to item 4, which is the resolution appointing election judges.
I think I'm back in. So this is the first of multiple resolutions, this time in regard to our election, so I will read it. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 280, State of Minnesota, as follows. 1, the list of individuals specified on Exhibit A, attached hereto, each of whom is qualified to serve as an election judge, are hereby appointed as judges of election for the school district's general and special election on November 3rd, 2015, to act as such at the polling places or combined polling places as listed on Exhibit B. And 2, the election judges shall act as clerks of election, count the ballots cast, and submit the results to the school board for canvass in the manner provided for other school district elections.
Are there any questions regarding this resolution? If not, I can.
I just, with the list of folks, I mean, we have verified to some reasonable level that folks listed are in fact qualified.
They are recruited, trained, and brought to us by the city. And so while we do not personally monitor their training and oversight, we are shared information from the city that has occurred in terms of their training. And similarly, the city provides us the polling places information, and our role is to create this resolution and publish the information.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move the resolution.
I'll second.
So motion by Nolenberger, second by Paulus. I will poll the board. Mr. Nolenberger?
Aye.
Ms. Malik?
Aye.
Ms. Etchen?
Aye.
Mr. Paulus?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Resolution is approved. The next item is donations. Mr. Yanowski?
We had a donation from the Wells Fargo Community Support Campaign, who donated $60 to Richfield Middle School as part of their matching employee contributions program. And Wells Fargo is a regular donation partner with us. A Wells Fargo employee donated $60, and that has now been matched by Wells Fargo.
So a very regular donation partner. Yes, indeed, Wells Fargo has been appearing frequent on our donations. I would look for a motion that we accept the donations with gratitude.
So moved?
Second.
So a motion by Paula, second by Etchen, that we accept these donations with gratitude. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, the motion carries. We are moving on to advanced planning, information and questions from the board. Are there any board members with items to share or questions to bring up? I do have one for you, Steve. As I was scanning through the agenda this evening, it just hit my mind thinking about sort of our regular process, of course, of a cycle of reviewing and approving and revising policies. And just recognize that I'm not exactly sure where we stand in that process. I know that we have been at work, but I was wondering if the administration would be willing to put together a calendar of sorts, so for a way of just sort of something we can sort of keep our eye on.
So ironic that you should share that. Our leadership team actually met last week, and we are beginning a conversation. So the role of the district leadership team is to help provide a calendar of policy review for the board. There's typically been a 5-year cycle. However, there has been, I believe, a short hiatus, and we have been doing policies as needed. And so we'll be coming back to this board with a proposed policy calendar, probably the second meeting in October. And we've also been revising the district's management calendar, which also helps remind us of the things that do come forth to the board, because we want to make sure that nothing is sort of slipping through the cracks and we aren't missing any of our regular reports, and that everything we do is up to date.
Excellent.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'm not sure which one of us read the other's mind, but I'm telling you, it was on target. Other items to bring up? If not, future meeting dates. We have our regular meeting the first Monday in October here in the boardroom at 7:00 p.m. on Monday the 5th. Our second meeting in October is Monday the 19th, also at 7:00 here in the district boardroom. Are there suggested agenda items?
Will, at the October 5th, will we have enough time to get the official enrollment? Or?
We should. It will be very close. We typically take the official enrollment on October 1st, and so we will at least have a preliminary assessment or final numbers, depending just how quick we are.
Okay, thanks.
Just in the interest of maybe complicating November even further, we did previously move the first meeting in November to the 9th, as I recall.
Yes,
Did we leave the second meeting on the 16th?
we did.
The reason I ask is, it turns out November is a 5-Monday month. So it might be, well, I guess the 23rd would be the week of Thanksgiving. Does it make any sense to spread those two meetings out into a regular 2-week format? Or do you want to have 2 meetings 2 weeks in a row and then 3 weeks off?
I will be out of town the week of Thanksgiving, so if we move it to that week, I won't be here, but
And as I open
that-
my mouth, I actually intend to be out of town that Monday as well. So perhaps I should.
Skating
Perhaps
on
it's-
thin ice.
So were you,
Yes.
so were you suggesting Thanksgiving, Mr. November?
It sounds risky suddenly.
Yes, if there happens to be a
Probably right.
Thanksgiving blizzard, we're in
Excellent point.
big trouble.
All right, we should just let cookies fly. Fair enough.
So, yes, we'll put you hard at work those middle 2 weeks of November.
See if we can make it to 8 o'clock on that second meeting.
Very good. Hearing no further items, we can look for a motion on adjournment.
So moved?
second?
So motion by Malik, second by Etchen. She only has a little while longer to give those, so I'm going to give it to you, Deb. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. We are adjourned.